Blake is going to really enjoy this one. So the Golden State Warriors just defeated the Denver Nuggets for the third time in a row. It's looking like it's going to be a sweep for that series.
Yep.
Blake, does Jokić still qualify to be the MVP or not?
Absolutely not. And I got some stats here for you. So,
all right.
Well, first of all, just let's get the basics out of the way. The fact that he was the 6th seed, and I don't care what anyone says, but Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray are not the difference between them being a 6 seed and a 1 or 2 seed. They're not. So, now that that's out of the way, if the Nuggets lose the next game, he will be the first MVP ever to get swept in the first round. Like, ever.
Wow.
As in, even old MVPs, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
And he will have the longest losing playoff streak for any MVP ever, and that one is including old MVPs. He will have lost 8 straight playoff games.
2 sweeps. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that he's one of like 13 people, if he wins it this year, to be a back-to-back MVP, and by far, even how people say like Steve Nash didn't deserve to be back-to-back MVP or whatever, but he was still on the best team in the conference and maybe even the NBA. They were like a 63-win team or whatever those years. They made it to the conference finals. So I don't care what anyone says. Jokić is the worst back-to-back MVP if he wins this year, and he might be just the worst overall MVP if they get swept. You can't give him one game, Jokić. Like, he played good last game. He did.
He played phenomenal last game. He was the MVP of the game.
If no other MVP has gotten swept in the first round, it's because they can get you one game, at least. Even when Westbrook was the 6th seed and won it, he averaged, I think it was like 37, 12, and 11 or something like that.
Yeah, it was a 37-point triple-double.
Yeah, and he didn't get swept. So that is why Jokić can't be MVP this year.
All right. Well, Blake, if you're done trashing
oh, good.
the league,
You just froze a little bit.
I'm going to
restate what you just said because you froze for a sec.
Am I unfrozen now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to completely disagree with everything you said, Blake. And this is why. Number one, the MVP is a regular season award in that the postseason doesn't matter.
Wow.
That's just how it is.
Okay,
all
I
right?
got something for that once you're done.
Okay. Well, no, you could
go
bring
now?
it in now. We'll forget.
But the MVP it's always represented people who perform in the playoffs. It represents the best players in the league. If no other MVP has ever performed this badly in the playoffs, it's because it's awarded to the best, one of the best players in the regular season.
Okay, but Jokić isn't underperforming. All right, here
He did
I've got
the
his
first 2
playoff
games.
stats. I have his playoff stats right here.
The first 2 games he underperformed.
No, he didn't.
Look at his field goal percentage.
His field goal percentage wasn't great, but he still got a minimum of 25 points per game each game.
Well, because who else is going to score? He takes all the shots.
He has no one to score. He leads both teams in points, rebounds, and steals in that series. All right?
Good for him.
He's averaging 29.3 points per game, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 2.3 steals, and 1 block. He leads his whole team in all of those stats.
Yeah, but what about his minus?
The plus minus is a BS stat.
No, because they
look at LeBron's plus minus in the 2018 finals when they got swept. Oh, by the same team too.
Yeah, but this wasn't the same team because they had Kevin Durant.
Well, it's the same Golden State Warriors.
Okay, we all know that team is probably the all-time best team ever.
Yes, it is. I'm just saying, okay, so Jokic is going to get swept. I'm not taking that away. The Nuggets are a terrible team. But if they had won one more game and the Jazz had lost one more game, they would be the 5th seed playing Dallas. And don't tell me they wouldn't have a chance in beating
They'd
them.
get swept.
They would not get swept against the Mavericks with no Luka Doncic. It would be 2-1 probably right now.
But that's the only reason they're the 6th seed is because they didn't perform that well in the regular season.
His team didn't perform. Jokic is the only player in the whole NBA who led his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. Okay. No one else did that.
Which would be cool if they were a good team.
That's my point, is he has to do everything. He is the most valuable player to that team because he has to do everything because he has no help.
That's like saying that, I don't know, Brandon Ingram is the MVP because the Pelicans would be the worst team in the NBA.
But he doesn't have to do everything. And they were the worst team until he got CJ McCollum.
Okay, or like someone else. I can't think right now. But
imagine
someone who's on a bad team.
If Jokic got a CJ McCollum and just had one other scorer, it would be a totally different story.
Okay, what about Trae Young? Why would he not be MVP then?
All right, I'm glad you brought that up because I had it. Let's see. So going back, it's a regular season award, and so they don't care about the postseason.
I know, but if it's a regular season award...
No, I've got it. So with Jokic, when he played, he was 46-28. He won 62% of the games he played in. His team without him was 2-6, which is 25%. Trae Young, with him, they were 40-36, winning 53% of the games, barely half. Without Trae Young, they were 3-3, winning 50% of the games. About the same with him as they are without him. Well, and I got stats for Embiid and Giannis, too, because those are the other MVP candidates.
Okay, well, I know those already.
No, well, the fans don't. So with Joel Embiid, when he played, they were 45-23. They won 66% of their games, which is 4% better than Jokic. Without Embiid playing, they were 6-8, winning 43% of their games compared to Jokic's team, which won 25%.
Okay, but before you go on to Giannis, I don't know who they played, but the quality of team that they're either losing to or beating factors into that. Like just if they were 6-8, but they played a bunch of bottom feeders during that time, and then Jokic they were 2-6 and played a bunch of playoff teams, then of course that's going to make sense.
Well, I don't have those stats, but I'm just saying the team cannot function without him.
And with him, they still don't function that
well.
They
won 62% of their games. Jokic won more games than Embiid and Giannis.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if he made the Nuggets that good to be even a 5th seed, how are they going to get blown out, swept by the Warriors?
Because the Warriors are a legit championship contending team. Okay. Because they have an overall better team. They have a death lineup when they...
Oh, dang it, you froze again. Looks like I'll just have to carry this.
Am I unfrozen now?
Oh, yeah, you are now.
Okay. When they have Steph, Poole, Thompson, Wiggins, and Draymond Green, they are a plus 29.
Yeah.
The reason the Warriors look so good, too, is because the Nuggets don't have any defenders.
Exactly.
The Nuggets
and Jokic isn't one of them.
Jokic leads both teams in steals.
Okay, but how is he on defense?
How's that not good defense? Steals is like one of the main defensive stats. Steals and defensive rebounds.
And blocks.
The only other one is blocks.
Yeah.
And he's still getting one a game.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but he's not the most valuable player in the league because I guarantee you, compared to other back-to-back MVPs or other MVPs, you put them on this Nuggets team and they would get a game in the playoffs, and they may
You
even
think
be.
Steve Nash would get a game on this Warriors team?
Yeah,
You swap out Jokić for Steve Nash.
probably. Because if you had Mike D'Antoni as the coach, because you have to factor in everything. That's the only reason Steve Nash was able to do that, because he had Mike D'Antoni as the coach.
Yeah, Steve Nash also had Amari Stoudemire and
Well, yeah,
Sean
he had way
Marion
better
and
players
Jason Richardson.
than.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay. So
I agree with that. But I'm saying, with that offense that Steve Nash enabled, I think they could get one game on the Warriors.
I don't think so.
Because was Amari Stoudemire really that good?
Yes.
He was like what, a one-time All-Star?
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look up his stats, but
Like
he was awesome on 2K.
like he's not like a perennial All-Star type guy.
No.
And same with Sean Marion. Like they were very good role players.
Sean Marion was a phenomenal defender and
Yes.
could shoot. Had the goofiest shot ever, but he could shoot.
I'm just saying, like, they didn't have, like, a big three, a prominent 3 All-Stars, or, like, anything like that.
Okay. So I would ask you this. What is the qualifications to become an MVP?
Who is the most valuable player in the NBA? If you had to draft the NBA, who would you draft? Because that's going to be the most valuable player in the entire league, and if they have to be a top 4 seed, in my opinion, and also have really good stats, obviously.
Okay, but by just being who's the first person people would draft, that's just saying who's the best player in the NBA.
No, that's saying who's the most valuable player to everyone.
Okay, but then you have guys like Michael Jordan and LeBron James who would win it every single year.
And that's how it should have been.
Yeah, but that's not how it is.
Because everyone, they always complain. I don't get why media members always complain that, like, oh, Shaq only won 1, Kobe only won 1, Jordan should have 8, LeBron should have 8, or whatever. They're the ones voting. Why can't you fix it? Like,
yeah.
Just change it and make it so that the person who deserves to win MVP every year, basically the best player in the league, should win it.
Okay, but see, here's the problem with you wanting it to be a top 4 seed, is that doesn't necessarily mean you're a title contender, because the last 2 years, the 5th seed in the East has come to the conference finals.
Well, but then that does mean you're a title contender if you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
So you should only be able to win MVP if you make the conference finals in the playoffs.
No, I'm just saying, you should have, if you are that valuable, you can't tell me that Jordan or LeBron or any of these really all-time greats who have won back-to-back MVPs, maybe you can win one MVP and not. But back-to-back, they would not be the 6th seed even with that Nuggets team. LeBron carried that Cavs team, which was way worse in 2000.
Because LeBron is the greatest player of all time. We can't compare anyone else to what LeBron did. It's really not fair.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, he's up in that top echelon now if he wins a back-to-back MVP.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the other question. Do you think if Jokić hadn't won MVP, would you give it to him this year?
I still wouldn't, but I would be okay with that.
Okay. Because, see, I think my biggest problem, I was looking back at MVPs that I would have given it to for the last, since we started watching basketball in 2008. And I was like, I agree with most, but then some of them I'm like, no, I would have given it to them. I would have given it to them. And I think the problem is we give the MVP to guys way too soon.
Oh, yeah.
Like right when we're like, oh, they're like the most improved all-star.
Yeah, that's basically what the award is.
See, and I feel like that's why Jokić got it last year. Because he was the most improved all-star. I 100% believe Jokić deserves it this year. I think he's done the most for his team. But I don't think he should have won last year. I think it should have been Giannis. But I don't think Giannis should have won in 2020 or with 2019 when he won his first. I think James Harden should have won it that year when he averaged 36 points per game. He carried that Rockets team to the 4th seed with no Chris Paul for most of the year.
Well, and even LeBron could have won it in
And
2020.
yeah, well, and LeBron should have won it in 2018.
Well, yeah, for sure. He had a terrible, terrible roster, and they were
Yeah,
what, the fourth seed?
yeah,
So that's what I'm
and he
saying.
took him to the finals.
If the qualification is you just have to be the doing the most for your team and at least be decent, then we have to redo so many other MVPs. Because that's why. Because
Yeah,
they never had enough wins. That was the argument. Like, oh, they only had a 50-win season or whatever, 48-win
yeah.
season or whatever. So I'm just saying, don't change the qualification. If
Well, I don't think the qualification is ever that you have to win 50 games.
Well, but it's always there's only been one person who's been awarded the MVP as a sixth seed for a reason, and that was
Yeah,
Russell
he averaged a
Westbrook.
triple double.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So if you're the sixth seed, it never happens, and yet Jokic is the guy who gets it.
See, but again, I feel like it goes back to that Jokic is doing the most for a crappy team. And so that gives you the most value.
But he's like his most for a crappy team is still less than the most for Embiid and
I don't think
Giannis.
Embiid would be better if they swapped Embiid and Jokic. I don't think they would be better.
I think they might be close.
Embiid has never even been to a conference finals, and he's had guys like Jimmy Butler. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
But that team didn't even make the conference
Well,
finals.
he was in like his third or fourth year or something back then. Like he was still super, because he missed his first 2 seasons with injury, and so he was still pretty young.
It was his second
Full
stint in the
season
playoffs.
play. I think it was his second full season of
It was
play.
well, it was his second playoff appearance.
Yeah. So I don't hold that against him. If they don't get there this year, then that's on him and Harden. But
Yeah. Do
anyway.
you think though, if that Embiid they can actually make the conference finals?
Yeah, with Middleton injured, I think they could.
They're not playing Chris Middleton. They would have to play the Heat next round.
Oh, that's true. Probably not. I'm going with the Heat.
Exactly. They're as much of a title contender as the Nuggets. No one believes they're
No,
going far.
because they're not getting swept in the first round. They're going to sweep in the first round.
If the Nuggets were playing the Raptors, they would sweep too.
No, they wouldn't. It would be like a 7-game hard-fought series.
Oh, come on.
Well, maybe
you know
if...
the Raptors would have no chance.
I mean, we can do all the what-ifs, but I'm just saying the first MVP to get swept in the first round.
Okay, but he's not going to be the first MVP to not make the playoffs, which was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay, but that's when the players voted.
I know, but still, it's not like this is... I mean, it is slightly unprecedented, but for the fact that a guy didn't even make the playoffs
because we all
to
know,
win MVP...
Well, yeah, that makes sense if the players were voting. If the players voted, it would easily be Giannis or Durant, probably, who won MVP.
Yeah, I think... So, we're going back to what the qualification should be. I think to qualify to be an MVP candidate, you have to play in 70% of the games, you have to have an above 500 winning record, and you have to make the playoffs. And I think that's what should qualify. That doesn't mean you get it. And then the ones who vote, you should have the players vote, you should have all the coaches and the assistant coaches vote, and then you should have the media vote.
Yeah.
And you average between the three, there's your MVP.
I agree.
I also think they should give awards for second and third place, because I think that should be noted on when you're looking at a guy's all-time career. Hey, he finished second in MVP
every year.
4 times.
Yeah.
He may have only won one, but he finished second 4 times, like James Harden
and LeBron.
And LeBron, yeah.
I think he was in the top 5 voting for 16 years straight or something.
Because then I think it would still where they're oh, Shaq only won 1 MVP or Kobe only won 1 MVP. Then you can still be yeah, but he was second all these X amount of years, and I would argue he should have won it.
Yeah.
Then because then it creates. I don't know. It's not just so black and white of they were the best player in the NBA.
Yeah, it's almost like you could rank it easier on like a point system where like, oh, this guy has 2 MVPs, but this guy has 7 second place MVPs.
Yeah. So it's like, where do you place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because like a guy like Chris Paul is probably never going to have an MVP.
Yeah.
But he is probably arguably better than Steve Nash was.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. But anyway.
Both. Yeah.
Well, we've gone way too long on this, but we just had to get that out of the way.
The fans will love it. They can debate this back and forth all day, but I'm glad we agree on what those qualifications should be.
Yes.